The office was too quiet. Not the peaceful kind of quiet, but the kind that made every small sound feel louder. The ticking clock, the soft hum of the air conditioner. Even the faint scratch of a pen against paper echoed like a secret waiting to be exposed. Daniel Hayes adjusted the cuff of his worn shirt, trying to keep his focus on the paperwork in front of him. He didn't belong here, not in this glass-walled office 30 floors above the city, not in front of a woman like her. Clara Voss, a billionaire CEO, sharp, composed, untouchable, and right now watching him. "You've been avoiding me." Her voice cut through the silence, calm, controlled, but unmistakably direct. Daniel didn't look up immediately. He finished signing the document, placed the pen down carefully, and only then met her gaze. "I've been busy," he replied simply. Clara leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. A faint smirk touched her lips, but her eyes stayed serious. "You're the only employee in this building who manages to stay busy whenever I'm around." Daniel didn't respond, because she wasn't wrong. From the moment he started working as a contractor in her company, fixing systems, handling maintenance, doing the kind of work no one noticed, he had made it a rule. Never be alone with Clara Voss. First, it was easy. The building was full of people. Meetings, schedules, constant movement. But Clara had noticed. Of course she had. She noticed everything. "Sit," she said, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. "I'm fine standing." That wasn't a suggestion. There was no arrogance in her tone, just authority. The kind that didn't need to be raised to be obeyed. After a brief pause, Daniel sat. The tension in the room thickened. Clara leaned forward slightly, her expression now more curious than confrontational. "Let's not waste time," she said. "I want an honest answer." Daniel stayed silent. Her eyes locked onto his. "Why do you avoid being alone with me?" The question hung between them, heavy, uncomfortable. Daniel exhaled slowly, rubbing his hands together as if buying time. He had hoped this moment would never come, but deep down he knew it would. "Because it's safer," he finally said. Clara's brows furrowed slightly. "Safer?" she repeated. "For who?" Daniel hesitated. Then he said it. "For both of us." That caught her off guard. She leaned back again, studying him more carefully now. Not as an employee, but as a puzzle. "You think being alone with me is dangerous?" she asked. "No," Daniel said quietly. "I think what people assume is dangerous." The room went still again. Clara's expression shifted, less confident now, more intrigued. "Explain." Daniel looked away for a moment, toward the city stretching beyond the glass walls. Cars moved like tiny ants below, lives continuing without interruption. "I'm a single dad," he said. "Everything I do, every decision I make, affects my daughter." Clara didn't interrupt. "I don't have the luxury of mistakes," he continued, "or rumors, or misunderstandings." Now she understood where this was going, but she didn't like it. "You think people would talk," she said. "They already do," Daniel replied. That hit harder than she expected. Clara straightened slightly, her voice quieter now. "And what exactly do they say?" Daniel gave a small, almost bitter smile. "That I get special treatment. That I spend too much time near the executive floors. That I'm just waiting for an opportunity." Clara's jaw tightened. "And you believe that matters?" Daniel looked back at her, his expression steady. "It doesn't matter to me," he said. "But it could cost me everything." The words landed with weight. "For you," he added, "it's just gossip. It fades." A pause. "For me, it could mean losing my job, my reputation, My ability to take care of my daughter. Clara didn't speak. For the first time in a long time, she had no immediate response. Daniel leaned forward slightly, his voice softer now, but more honest than before. So I keep my distance, he said. Not because of who you are. A brief pause. But because of what the world turns things into. Silence filled the room again. But this time, it felt different. Not tense. Not hostile. Just real. Clara looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time. Not as an employee, not as a problem to solve, but as a man carrying responsibilities she had never truly understood. And somehow, his answer didn't just surprise her. It unsettled her, because for the first time in years, someone wasn't drawn to her power. They were protecting themselves from it. Clara exhaled slowly, her voice quieter than before. You're the first person who's ever avoided me for that reason. Daniel stood up. Then I guess I'm the first one being honest. He turned to leave. But just as his hand reached the door, Clara spoke again. Daniel. He paused. Her voice softened just a little. Next time, don't avoid me. A beat. Just trust me. Daniel didn't turn around. But his answer came steady and careful. Trust isn't the problem, he said. He opened the door. Timing is. And then he walked out, leaving Clara Voss alone in a silence that felt far louder than before. For the first time, she wasn't in control of the situation. And strangely, she didn't hate it. Clara Voss didn't like unfinished conversations. And yet, Daniel Hayes had just walked out of her office, leaving behind something she couldn't quite define. It wasn't defiance. It wasn't disrespect. It was distance, the kind she wasn't used to. For years, people had moved toward her, drawn by power, money, influence. Even those who feared her never truly stayed away. But Daniel? He stepped back. On purpose. Clara stood by the glass window, arms crossed, watching the city below, but not really seeing it. His words echoed in her mind. For me, it could mean losing everything. That wasn't fear. That was responsibility. And somehow, it made him more dangerous than anyone she had ever dealt with. The next morning, the office buzzed with its usual rhythm. Phones ringing, keyboards clicking, quiet conversations floating through the air. But Clara noticed something immediately. Daniel was already there, on the far side of the floor, fixing a panel near the conference rooms. Focused, calm, completely in his own world. And just like before, not once did he look toward her office. Clara watched him for a moment longer than she intended. Then she made a decision. She stepped out. Heads turned instantly. Conversations lowered. That was the effect she had. But she didn't stop. She walked straight toward him. Daniel sensed her before he saw her. His hands paused mid-motion, but he didn't turn around right away. Mr. Hayes, Clara said, her tone professional, just loud enough for nearby employees to hear. Now he turned. Yes, ma'am. There it was again. That line. That invisible wall he kept placing between them. Clara ignored it. I need you to check something in the executive lounge, she said. A small pause. Now. A few employees nearby exchanged quick glances. Daniel noticed. Of course he did. His jaw tightened slightly. That area's usually handled by. I'm aware, Clara cut in smoothly. Today I want you. Silence. It wasn't a request. Daniel wiped his hands with a cloth, steady but slower than usual. Understood. The executive lounge was quiet, private, far from the noise of the main office. Exactly the kind of place Daniel avoided being alone in, especially with her. He stepped inside first, scanning the room automatically. Large windows, leather chairs, a long polished table. No one else. A few seconds later, Clara entered, closing the door behind her. The soft click echoed louder than it should have. Daniel didn't turn around this time. "What needs fixing?" he asked. Clara didn't answer immediately. Instead, she walked further into the room, her heels clicking softly against the floor. "Nothing," she said. That made him turn. Their eyes met, and just like that, they were alone. Exactly what he had been trying to avoid. Daniel exhaled slowly. "With respect," he said, "I have work to do." "So do I," Clara replied. She stepped closer, but not too close. Not enough to cross the line. Just enough to test it. "You said something yesterday," she continued, "about trust." Daniel stayed silent. "You trust me," she said, "but not the situation." "That's right." Clara nodded slightly, as if confirming a theory. "Then let's change the situation." A faint crease appeared between Daniel's brows. "How?" Clara gestured around the room. "No secrets. No closed doors." She reached behind her and opened the door again. The noise of the office filtered in faintly. Then she stepped back. "Better." Daniel looked at the open door, then at her. He understood what she was doing. She wasn't dismissing his concern. She was adjusting for it. That was new. "Why?" he asked quietly. Clara tilted her head slightly. "Why what? Why does this matter to you?" The question lingered. Clara held his gaze, but for the first time there was no immediate answer. Because the truth? She didn't fully know. But she wasn't going to say that. Instead, she chose honesty, just not all of it. "Because I don't like being misunderstood," she said. Daniel let out a quiet breath. "Neither do I." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Clara did something unexpected. She stepped back, creating space, not closing it. "Check the lighting panel," she said, her tone shifting back to business. "It flickers sometimes." Daniel glanced at the ceiling panel. A real issue, or at least, a believable one. He nodded. "All right,